What's up everyone and welcome to another video. Today I'll be teaching you guys how to play Terran like a pro in 2025. I'll make sure to include at least one game of every single matchup where I explain all of my decisions, all of my strategies, what kind of units you want to build, etc. Now for the people that are wondering, didn't you retire a couple of years ago? That's true, but last season I was still rank 1 and 2 on the NA server, and the last time I played EU ladder seriously I was about 65 on the MMR, which would make me the second or third highest Terran in Europe. The old man still has some things to teach you guys. Let's get into it. Alright, here is game number 1 against a Grandmaster Protoss player. Now, in PvP, the overall strategy is relatively simple. In this matchup you have a very clear window of activity for both races, so Terran always wants to do something early on. This is pretty much just the first lesson that everyone needs to know for playing Terran against Protoss. The first 7 minutes, or actually even the first 5 minutes, Terran wants to do something annoying, and here you have pretty much complete freedom. And the reason why you have complete freedom is because Protoss players are used to early aggression, which means that every Protoss player is going to be good against something else, really depending on their style, what they've run into a lot. So what I want you to do for the most part is to find a early annoying PvP strategy that you like. Now what I'm going to do here is one of the most standard ones. Or not really standard, I mean, I guess everything is standard, right, in PvP, because like I said, you want to do something annoying. But this is one of the more common ones, I guess, just playing any kind of double gas opener on one base, trying to mess your opponent up with Reaper Hellion, and then after you do the damage, you're going to have a little window of being more defensive. Now, just in case you guys are curious, my voice is still a little scuffed because I have been a little sick, but I felt like it was just time to record a video after a couple days of not being able to, so here we are. What better video to make than to teach you guys how to play like a pro? Well, I just came off being a little sick. Oh, actually one mistake I made here, by the way, I have to correct myself, is if you play against Protoss in specific, you want to build the barracks in the wall anyway. The reason why I don't do this is because now I don't have to lift it to make an add-on, which saves you a little bit of time. This is the correct way to do it against Terran, for example, because it doesn't really matter if the worker gets in. Against Protoss, since you're going to deploy more mind games, you actually do want to fill the gap and then just, you know, put in extra effort to fly that barracks over later. Now, I'm going to go with a reactor after just one Reaper. Once again, here you can really be completely creative. You could go for a proxy Reaper, for example, instead of going for the double gas. You could make a second Reaper really fast, try to get some damage done. You can try to do some shenanigans where you make a bunker behind the Protoss mineral line, attacking with Reapers. And I guess the biggest reason for this is that you're going to see this throughout this video, is that Terran does always want to be aggressive in some capacity. If you play Terran completely passively, it is just going to be slightly worse than the other races. This is even more so the case against Zerg, but you definitely just want to put on some pressure right away. And since, remember at the start I talked about the activity windows of both races, Protoss has the activity window very strongly, pretty much as soon as Blink finishes, or if they play Stargate, if Phoenixes come out, you really want to try to do something before then. In TVZ, you don't have to be so drastic, you don't necessarily have to go for a double gas instantly, in fact in TVZ that's even bad. But against Protoss, you really want to do stuff like this as fast as possible. At some point, builds like these were played for safety. Now it's really just played because you want to mess your opponent up pretty fast. So this game I'm going to go for a 5-unit attack. It's going to be 3 Reapers and 2 Hellions. Starport is going to come up behind it. Now TVP has a very important focus on scouting. I'm actually going to teach you guys this right away. You guys are going to see this throughout this video, but I'm going to teach it to you guys right away. One really big reason why it's super good to be aggressive is not the damage you do, but it's the scouting info you get. When you attack, you're always going to get scouting info. Now here I'm going to attack the Stalker. The only reason why I'm doing this is because there's no battery. I made sure to check in deep enough if there was a battery. There's no battery, so I can kill the Stalkers, and I'm going to be able to get a lot of probes. His Warp Gate should have just finished, so I'm not going to get too many probes here, but this is already going to put me very slightly ahead, which is nice. Actually, did his Warp Gate finish? What the hell happened to his probes over here? Okay, this is not supposed to happen, by the way, just so you guys know. You can get a little bit of damage done. Obviously, my opponent didn't scout here, and I played double gas, so killing some probes is kind of necessary even. You're not supposed to kill freaking 10 workers or whatever I just did. In fact, I can even save these over here. Now, what I was mentioning earlier is the scout is super important, and it mostly goes, or it's mostly about the tech. Here I see it's Twilight Council, which means that my choice of going Banshee plus tank is completely reasonable. If he were to go for a Stargate, you would be more going towards Cyclones, for example. Maybe even like a Medevac or a Viking, just to make your Cyclone a bit stronger against, probably Phoenixes and Oracle. You would have seen it by now. I'm gonna siege my tank over here. Now, the build I'm playing against is one of the absolute most common builds in PvP. In fact, you see this pretty much every single game, so you have to know how to defend against this. I'm playing against, in this case, it's 3-gate blink. Oh, no, it's actually just 2-gate blink. Okay, never mind. The most common build you will face against is going to be 4-gate blink or 3-gate blink, which are both pretty aggressive. Here, it seems like he wanted to play defensive, but he took so much damage that he's going to play aggressive anyway. At least judging by him attacking my bunker just now. That's why I'm making a bunker on the high ground as well. It's going to make it a bit harder for him to snipe my tank. And just like this, I am pretty well positioned to defend all of this. I'm going to add on my barracks over here. Really important thing to do for Terran in every single matchup, by the way. It's also the hardest part about macro. Is exactly this. If this was just a tank, I would have struggled here, but because there's a bunker there, he can't actually get on top. Okay, this is so painful to watch. He's not even going to kill that, I think. Yeah, if he doesn't leave here, this guy's an absolute mental titan, I can tell you that much. He's going to lose the Prism too, isn't he? Lol. Yeah, normally I would say that this was a little whiny, but I think he just realized that this was kind of a comical attack. Did he kill anything? I don't think he did, actually. Let's see. No, he actually did not kill anything with this attack. 0 resources lost. Now, once again, this is not really how it's supposed to go. You're not supposed to get that much damage on the Reaper Hellion. But since we played against the most common strategy in TvP, I'm going to keep this game in anyway. I'll make sure to include another TvP, but this was a nice game to start off with. Okay, the second game is against a Zerg player. Now, TvZ strategically is the most simple of the three, I would say. I think it is at the same time the most difficult mechanically, so even though you can execute the right strategy, you might still struggle in TvZ if you're not mechanically sound. But there is still a really good pattern to follow in TvZ. So remember what I said last game about Terran always wanting to be aggressive? In TvZ that goes the same way. If you guys have watched a lot of like really high level pro matches, you might have seen a lot of Terrans winning in those long drawn-out games with a lot of planetary fortresses and ghosts and stuff. This is a good way to play, but it doesn't mean that you don't have to be aggressive. If you try to get into that while you're just camping, it's just not going to go well for you. Zerg can build way more economy than you. So once again, just like in PvP, you're going to want to find a way to be aggressive. But in TvZ, this is going to work a little differently, and I'm going to show you. So first of all, Zerg has defense by default with the queens. Now obviously the queens don't defend literally everything, but they defend a pretty good amount. This means that against Zerg you want to do more specific harassment. Like for example, if you're going to attack with 3 Reapers and 2 Hellions, like I did against Protoss, you're just going to die to the queens and your economy sucks, so that's not something you want to do. Against Zerg, if you're going to attack, you will either do an attack that targets drones. So, for example, making 6 Hellions from a reactor and clicking them past the queens. Or you want to do an attack that's so committed that you can actually kill the queens. Now, that historically has not been the best strategy against Zerg. So the most common strategy is what I'm going to show you now, is that you go for a fast 3rd command center while doing some kind of attack that kills drones. And this can be a bunch of different things still. I do recommend you stay in this framework. Fast 3rd command center plus something that kills drones really is the most common way to play. Now, I think it's also a good time to talk about styles when it comes to Terran. A lot of you will know that you can play both bio and mech with Terran, right? You can either play barracks-based or factory-based, pretty much. Mech, even though I think it's very cool, is sadly just not as good as bio. I would say in TvP against Protoss, it's an absolute no-brainer, okay? Mech against Protoss just sucks. It's absolutely terrible. So you don't really want to do it like ever. Against Zerg, I think like mech, you can play it, but it's also not as good. I would say if against Protoss, mech is like 10% and bio is 90. There's actually two links here that can be a little annoying. Against Zerg, bio is probably 70 and mech is 30. Against Terran, it's pretty close to 50-50. If there's one matchup where you can play mech, it is probably going to be against Terran. Against Zerg, you can play it, but it's not as good. Against Terran or against Protoss, you never want to play it. That's pretty much the ranking, if you will. Now, my opponent's going to go for a third hatch already. Scouting against Zerg, very important. Not actually that difficult, though. First of all, you just want to see if they have a fast third hatchery. I know it looks very fast because it's almost finished, which you can tell by how big the building is, by the way, in the Fog of War. But even though they have a third hatch, they can still all-in you, so you want to be careful. This is where you want to save the Reaper. Now, saving the Reaper is sometimes a little difficult because, exactly, it's kind of hard to know where all the Overlords are. So there, if the Overlord was a little bit further out of reach, he would have seen my Reaper and I would not have seen the Overlord. And that would have been a little problematic. Okay, I was about to go for Banshees, but I actually decided to show you guys a build that I like the most against Zerg. So notice how I'm making these Hellions over here. And now I'm going to show you guys the single most important scouting timing against Zerg, and that is the 4-minute scout timing. I'm actually going to pretend to go in the main and then switch directions here, because what I really want to see is the natural. There's a drone over here, there's no buildings, he has a gas. Okay, that's exactly what I wanted to see there. He has one gas. If they have 2 gases on the natural, then you know for sure that it's going to be a roach all-in. Now, since he has 2 gases, I'm kind of tempted to think that he is going to go for macro roach play. Could be wrong about this. 2 gases is actually not very common at all. But that's why I scouted 4 minutes. If you scouted 4 minutes, what you're going to see if they're roach all-inning you is very commonly that both gases are taken over here. Even if you don't see the roach warren, that's pretty much a sign that they're going to attack you with Ravagers. Now here, I saw 2 gases and I got an entire scout of the base, saw no roach warren. So I think what he's going to do is go for a delayed roach warren and play it safely. Now I'm going to make 2 extra Hellions. That's just what I'm doing to be safe here, because I'm going to lose these. I knew that I was going to right-click these into his mineral line. This is exactly the harassment I was talking about, by the way. Now, since there's not too many more drones here, I don't want to lose all of these. I'm going to keep a couple of these alive. I'm going to make my 2 engineering base. I think I traded like 2 Hellions and a bunch of health for, I don't know, what was that, 10 drones or so? I know it wasn't too crazy, but it was pretty good after all. But then I'm going to go for the follow-up exactly like this. You're going to get 2 extra barracks. Once again, you're going to use the add-ons of the other buildings to supply your barracks. Last game I didn't really get to show it, but that's how you want to do it anyway. Liberator sieging over here. And notice I was taking more gases, by the way, which is definitely suspicious. Now here I'm going to teach you guys something important. This is actually a basic that a lot of Terran players get wrong. If you play bio against Zerg, that usually means you're playing Marine Tank, okay? Marine Tank really does mean Marine Tank. And you might think at first, time hearing this, is that really some legendary insight? It is, because a lot of people think it will mean Marine Marauder Tank. The reason why you don't want to play Marine Marauder Tank is because if you make both Marauders and tanks, you're going to be weak against Zerglings. None of those units is actually good against Zerglings. The unit that is good against Zerglings is the Marine and not actually the Marauder. Now he is indeed attacking me like I expected. I'm going to lose a couple of units over here. This doesn't strike me as the most committed attack ever, by the way. That's why I'm just going for it. It really felt like just a couple of roaches. In the end, it's still a pretty good attack. But this, let me just finish my point over there because it was important. So normally, if you play against Ling Bailing and you're playing Bio Tank, you're really just making Marines, okay? No Marauders there until the late game. Now, since we're playing against Roaches, I am actually going to add those Tech Labs. This is even against Roaches, it's still questionable. Even against Roaches, you can play pure Marine Tank, and that's completely fine. But yeah, really just avoid playing Marauder Tank against the Zergling Bailing, because you're really not going to be happy. You will literally just lose to someone making Lings and Bailings, and it doesn't feel good. So at this point in the game, I would say that, yeah, it's probably a pretty good game for us. I would say that we're probably slightly ahead here. It's nothing too crazy. Upgrades are going to approach 1-1. Now, what I scouted here so far was mostly a lot of gases, and that there was going to be macro roach, right? Let's see, he has one upgrade on those. I can actually get past here because it's just one roach. The Hellions, normally, you might not want to sacrifice them like this, because Hellions are going to be really good against Ling Bane later on, because when you get an armor, you can transform them into Hellbats. But against roaches, they are going to be pretty much useless besides killing drones like that, so that's why I can throw them away. But if you're playing against Ling Bane, you want to be careful. Now, I couldn't quite tell if this was going to be an all-in with roaches or not. If Zergs play roaches, they're either going to go into lurkers, or they're going to all-in you with mass roaches pretty much. Now, that's why I scanned over there. I wanted to see the drone count on the 4th base. Zerg always wants to be ahead in eco, ahead in workers, especially because you have mules as Terran. So if they don't have drones on that base, it doesn't even necessarily mean that they're going to all-in, but it means that I don't have to attack. Now, I'm not gonna lie, that army looks pretty small. If he's gonna attack here, he will die. There's absolutely no doubt about it. He already used his bios. Now, what I'm gonna do actually, I have enough to kill it all. I was about to say, what I'm gonna do is target his Ravagers. That's what you normally want to do. Ravagers are an extremely good firing target. And the reason why is because those things are way more expensive than they look. So if you get the chance to get onto the Ravagers directly, you always want to grab that chance. A Ravager costs 100, by the way. So it's like a Mutalisk. There I got like 5 Ravagers. That's 500 in terms of resources, which is pretty crazy. Now, I'll give you guys some tips against roaches normally. If you play against roach into lurker, your best course of action is trying to hit a timing attack that hits before lurkers are out. If you play against someone just making roaches to all-in you, then you just want to max before you move out. Here, we're kind of in an awkward game where I don't know if my opponent's going to have either of those things, because we've just kind of owned him so far. Yeah, he's making mass links. Okay, so it showed me that he's going to go for banelings. Normally, you always want to siege your tanks before you go in. Here, I just don't have to. But once again, normally you would. If you don't want to accidentally lose because you make a bad decision, just seize the tanks before you go in. Here I could tell that his army was absolutely tiny, and we could just stomp him. And this is the kind of game that I really like having in a tutorial like this, because here, like, I know my mechanics were fine, but they actually were not perfect at all. I'm not quite sure if you guys noticed, but my upgrades were a little late, my 2nd and 3rd barracks were a little late, and this really was not the most mechanically sound execution ever. But why we did win is really just doing the right build and some simple scouting. Remember, I scouted with my Reaper in time. I saw that it was most likely going to be macro roach based on the amount of gases and buildings he had. My Hellions were able to get a decent amount of damage. Since I did realize it was going to be macro roach and not a big roach timing attack, I didn't over-defend, I didn't make too many bunkers, I just held this roach attack. And then, yeah, from that point on, it was a relatively simple game. I did the scan to see if he was going to attack me, realized he was, just waited patiently, killed his army, attacked when I was max. And that is a very simple game against the Grandmaster Zerg. Let's keep it going. All right, the 3rd game is against another Zerg. Now, for this game, I actually didn't mind what matchup I would get, because I thought it'd be really cool to get another Protoss and another Zerg as well. I do realize, by the way, that it's impossible to give all the info in just one video. Like, for example...
Not enough
no.
minerals.
I really want to say no, because he would probably leave if I said yes. But I also don't want to play mech anyway, because of what I explained in the last game. But I do realize that I'm not going to be able to explain everything in just one video. But if I can get another game against Ling Bane here, that'd be very nice. If I could play a mecha game against Protoss as well, that'd be very nice. But I just want to ask you guys, if you guys want to see more of this, please let me know in the comments. If you want like a part 2 where I explain more different situations, or you want me to do this for Protoss or Zerg, for example, that would be awesome intel for me, and then I could work on that. That's actually pretty funny that he asked that, because him asking that implies that he would leave if I was playing mech. Which implies that mech is really strong against him, after I just told you guys that it was not that good. Yeah, the thing with mech is that it has very specific counters, and especially around like low Grandmaster level, a lot of Zergs, they tend to not make spellcasters that much, which are the counter to mech. So if you play mech against someone only running roaches into your face, then yeah, mech can actually be pretty good. Now this game I'm gonna do a slightly different build order, because, you know, I might as well switch it up. I'm not quite sure exactly yet how I'm going to do that. For now, I think I'll probably go for a 3rd command center still, but I guess we're gonna find out. Obviously, it really depends on what my opponent's going to do as well. Since here I'm playing to try as properly as possible, that means I'm not going to just blindly do build orders every single time, right? I kind of want to, react to my opponent and do the best thing. Now, one thing to also keep in mind is that there's different maps. This map, for example, is a really strange one, where the entire middle is covered by rocks. And that kind of gives me the idea that an early tank push might be good here. Like, for example, a tank push here, if this is the only choke, that's pretty strong. Oh, by the way, I don't think I really explained the SCV scout in the last game against Zerg. Against Zerg, the only reason you SCV scout is... Oh, I actually wanted to take that third base. I'm not going to try and block him, I could, but what the hell did I do here? That's quite impressive, actually. I probably pressed the button on... You guys probably watched me do that. I pressed the button on accident. Happens to the best, I guess. But against Zerg, the SCV scout really is only to see the hatchery. If the hatchery is not fast, you can kind of run into very annoying builds. Like, for example... if they play pool before hatchery, they can make 6 Zerglings and run them around before your Reaper arrives to the base, and then they kill this SCV and your command center is delayed by like 40 seconds, unless you pull more SCVs and then you'll lose SCVs. So that's just an absolutely terrible scenario. Now, I think I could do something a little crazier here, just to show you guys the things that are possible. That sounds kind of nice to me. So what I'm going to do here is I'll play a Battlecruiser build, I think. Now, Battlecruiser into Bio might sound weird to you guys, but it's actually a perfectly fine build order. Oh, I do have to admit one thing. I have not tested Battlecruiser openers against Zerg since the Spore Crawler got buffed. So it's possible that Battlecruiser openers are weaker now. In any case, Battlecruiser openers are not the standard anyway. If you want to do something that really is more of a golden standard, you would do something like I did last game. You can also play Banshees, for example. Banshees really safe against roaches. If you play a lot against roaches, you could make 2 cloaked Banshees right now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a fusion core. And I'm not just going to do that. I'm going to go for a Liberator and then a Battlecruiser, which is a build I saw a long time ago by Oliveira, a Chinese Terran that is now retired. He was a world champion of 2023, I believe. No drones here yet, by the way. He is making a couple of Zerglings. What that means is that I need to keep my next Hellions at home for sure. Normally, you want to do that anyway. The best way to send the Hellions is to just send the first 2 across and keep the rest at home. Now I know he has Zerglings for sure. I definitely want to keep the rest at home. Hellions are good against Lings, but if Lings get into your base when the Hellions are gone, you are in a big amount of trouble. Now this game I didn't go for the 4-minute scout, and instead just exactly, here are the Zerglings, it's a lot of them too. That is going to be perfectly fine because I kept all the Hellions at home. In fact, I can even just fight this with my SCVs over here, and that's going to be a pretty good start for me. It's not, it doesn't put him behind or anything because I did lose a little bit of mining time there. It was slightly awkward, but in the end it's okay. So that's why you keep your Hellions at home, because if you don't, you could really just instantly die to one of those things. Now this game, I'm making extra Hellions. The standard for Hellions is 6. I'm going to keep 2 extra Hellions at home, actually. The standard for Hellions is 6, but since extra Hellions allow me to do extra damage, I do like occasionally making extras. Last game, I believe I made 8. I think last game I made 8 because I went for the Hellion run-by and I lost a couple and I wanted to be more safe. This is exactly what I mean with the Queens, by the way. They kind of defend your stuff by default, so it's, you know, sometimes if you commit to like a medium attack, it can be a bit depressing. I'm mostly trying to see if he's going for like a Roach Warren. This is a very good fight for me here. Gonna kill a bunch of Zerglings without really losing a whole lot. I do want to start getting a scout on now. Up until this point, where did my Liberator go? Oh, there it is. Up until this point, nothing has really looked suspicious. But he does have a lot of gases, I believe, or not necessarily gases, but he has had a lot of time. And I haven't seen a lot of links, or a lot of anything. I mean, I have seen a lot of Zerglings, but nothing else. So I'm kind of curious what's going on here. Gonna go up to 5 barracks and double engineering bay. This Liberator, I actually... Okay, I made a little bit of a mistake there, because normally I don't mind losing that Liberator. In this case, I actually did want to keep it alive. And there I see the Spire, by the way. That's really important intel. I was kind of trying to focus on my macro over here because it hasn't been the cleanest. I have, you know, not played Starcraft 2 for a little bit of a small week or something. So that's why my macro is a little rusty. So I need to focus on it extra. He does not have a Spore Crawler. once again, queens do defend most things. A battlecruiser is included. So what I'm going to do here is I'll just try to target a couple of these drones, and then I'm going to go towards the main base. I think he might have stopped trying to defend this because he pulled his queens toward the battlecruiser. Now, the fact that he's going to go for a spire, it is actually pretty meaningful here. If you teleport your BC into the base against a spire, that means your BC is sentenced to die unless you move it back really quickly. Can I actually stay here? I can't. So his air units are going to come back, or going to come alive before my battlecruiser teleport cooldown has, how do you call that, expired. Until I can teleport again is what I'm trying to say. Not quite sure what sentence I was going for there. So I'm just trying to kill as many drones as possible. This is more than enough damage, by the way. Don't really have to worry about it. There's the Corruptors. Very happy to see Corruptors here. I cannot lie. This is a very nice thing about playing BCs. I wonder if you guys realize what I'm talking about here. So if you play battlecruisers, a lot of your opponents are going to assume that you're going to play mech. And then they're going to make units that are good against mech, such as roaches and Corruptors. But if you're playing bio, you're just going to absolutely shred those units. That's why I'm going across right now. If my opponent was already on like a lot of mutas, let's say I saw mutas there, 10 mutas flying towards my base, I'd want to defend those first. I want to make a turret in every single base, you know, really try to get my base really properly set up, and then I would go across. Since he's going for Corruptors, he probably thinks it's going to be mech. I don't think he's going to have anything against my push, and this is going to be a very painful push. In fact, I would be surprised if he managed to defend this. I know he's going to have bailing speed, at least fast enough. I just don't think he has enough units, though. Like, my Hellions here are going to be extremely powerful. Without bailings, he's never going to win a fight like that because my marine count is too big. Behind this, I'm going to go for 8 racks, by the way. It's actually my favorite follow-up for TVZ. It's probably more common these days on the pro level to go for a 4th command center before the extra barracks. But the reason why I like this many barracks, especially on this map, remember what I said earlier, that it's a good map to do tank pushes on? This way, I guess I can go through the middle. It's a little bit of a weird map. I was trying to navigate it. But this way, you can really put on a lot of pressure, and if your opponents are ever just a tiny bit too greedy, you can pretty much just kill them right away. And then if you play on a map like this, where tank pushes are strong, it's already... Oh, I forgot my combat shield. I just realized, by the way, that's painful. It's actually one of the... It's both one of the most painful mistakes and most common mistakes, funnily enough. I can actually sandwich him here. If you guys are wondering how bad for getting combat shield against Zerg is, it's actually really bad. Because if you stim your marines, they get one shot by the banelings if you don't have combat shield. So only one baneling has to connect and you're pretty much forked. Now, my trades have been more than good enough, so I don't have to worry about this at all. I don't think my opponent can pretty much ever catch up here. I probably would be a little more careful normally, but just like last game, I already know that this game is pretty much in the bag over here. Can do some average splits, nothing too crazy. And I think my opponent should be conceding anytime. Exactly, there we go. So this was a bit of a different game. Last game we had to go on the defensive. This game I decided to go for another opener. But I think throughout these games you can see that really, if you look at it a bit closer, obviously my mechanics are still pretty close to pro level, even in these games where I'm not executing properly. But you'll see that I'm making a lot of mistakes in my builds. I forgot my combat shield, I forget upgrades here and there. But if you scout properly, just do the normal correct build, or strategy I should say, you can really get very far. Like here, I noticed exactly what he had. I noticed he was going for the Spire. I knew, for example, from the first moment he had extra links, so I kept my Hellions at home, but maybe a very tiny advantage there. Then I noticed with my BC, he went Corruptors, went for a push, killed the 3rd base. And a lot of these moves are very, very logical. I know if you look at pro play, it tends to look like, okay, these guys always attack at the same time, they hit the same timing attack. But if you just scout and react, and make the right decisions, sometimes the game can actually look very easy. All right, the 4th game is going to be our first Terran. We're playing on Neon Violet Square. Now, TVT is the most complicated matchup of the 3, at least strategically. It's just a little more chaotic. I guess in the other matchups, well, TVZ the most, TVP a little less, but in the other matchups, you can do builds where you can kind of cover all your bases. In TVT, that's a little harder. You have fast expansions, greedy play, you have medium aggressions, full-on aggressions, and then even in the aggressive builds, you have so many different options, and it's very hard to choose, you know? It's very hard to be prepared for everything as well. So what I would recommend for TVT is that you pick one build that you really like and is pretty good against everything, you can copy the build I'm going to do now. You can also figure out your own thing. I would recommend that you play double gas instead of one gas Reaper expand. And the reason for that, this used to be an advice that I would give to people that were below pro level. So including grandmasters, just everyone that wasn't a pro should play double gas. But now I feel like even pros should probably play double gas most games, because Reaper expand, it is just really hard to defend with, especially with the mind games people are using and stuff. Like sometimes they'll pretend to play double gas, but then there's actually a proxied barracks out on the map, stuff like that, you know. And it just becomes such an extreme hassle. I would say that on a map like this, for example, you could Reaper expand a little more comfortably because there's not that many entrances, there's no Reaper cliffs, so if you're going to choose certain maps to Reaper expand on, you could do this one. But for now, I'm just going to be showing my my basic TVT build, the build I like doing the most. So that is going to be a double gas opener. Now, scouting in TVT is quite important. You just want to know what the opening is they're going for. Here you can see my opponent's also going to go for a double gas. Just so you guys know, even if his factory was hidden, you would still pretty much be able to tell that it's double gas, because if it's a fast expand, there shouldn't be a second depot already. And if it's I mean, it could be a 2x Reaper as well. But 2x Reaper, I mean, for the most part, it's just kind of a worse double gas. I mean, I guess you need to be a little more vigilant. Like, you need to make sure you're not going to get caught off guard when you only have 2 Reapers against 3 before your Hellion arrives, that kind of thing. Now, we're playing double gas against double gas. This is the situation you're going to find yourself in the most. And here is when things get a little bit complicated. I actually kind of wish I got a more difficult map. On this map, it's a little easier to defend. And I kind of wish that I had a map where it was a little more difficult to defend, so I could show you guys a little more clearly. So what you want to try to do in TVT is just cover all your bases preemptively. And the reason for that is that you can see with the double gas going on, this is a very low eco game. I don't have that many workers, I don't have that many minerals. If you lose 2 or 3 SCVs early on, you could already be pretty much screwed right away. So you really want to make sure that you can't even lose a couple workers. So what you would do on a map that has a Reaper cliff is you would rally these 2 Reapers to the Reaper cliff already, because there is travel distance. If my opponent had the same amount of units as me, I don't know why I kept doing that today, by the way, stopping building buildings. My opponent has the same amount of units as me, but there's travel distance, so this is what it looks like, right? At the front, it's going to be the same. If he jumped into the main base, it would have been the same. Probably going to be a slightly favorable trade for me here. That's always nice. Might even kill that Hellion. He's a little greedy with that. Yeah, there we go, exactly. And that is perfect. Now, this is why you want to have your units in position. If my units, for example, were on the ramp, I was actually going to go for it, surprisingly. If my units were on the ramp, I might have lost the SCV building the command center and maybe another one, and it gets bad pretty fast. If on another map he would have jumped into my main with 2 Reapers and I wouldn't be ready, I would lose 3 SCVs in the main, I'm also pretty much screwed. So you always want to make sure you're in position already. Now I'm going to move out with my own units. Keep in mind that, you know, you do want to be aggressive a little bit just so you can get some scouting and stuff. This is where things get a little tricky, exactly, because of stuff like this. But at this point, I'm going to be able to do counter damage, and he's not going to be able to do that much to me, so it's all going to be all right. Now, for the most part in TVT, you always want to make 1 Cyclone. That's so you can position it in time to defend all kinds of air harassment. And now, my opponent has a tank. I know he doesn't have any other units, so I can just go into the dead zone of the tank. We're going to kill a bunch of SCVs. Not that many, actually. I think we're probably 2 SCVs ahead or so, which once again is pretty good. I'm going to go for the Interference Matrix here. Now I'm going to show you guys an advanced move as well. First of all, it's a defensive map. Second of all, in TVT, you should be able to survive anyway. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stop building Marines so I can afford a 3rd base. And you even do this if you're going to play Bio. And the reason is, if you keep making Marines non-stop, your 3rd could be delayed by over a minute, and your opponent just walks over you economically. Well, realistically, having 4 extra Marines is really not gonna win you the game. I mean, maybe in the most rare situation ever, but probably not. Now, remember what I said about positioning. Always keep the Cyclone in position. Ideally, you have the Raven and the Cyclone there together. Then after 1 Cyclone, you start building tanks, and you're gonna siege that in the natural. And now if you look at my base layout, I have the front covered, I have the back of my natural covered for auto turrets and drops, and I have the main base covered as well. This is pretty much the ideal situation because now I don't have to actually react to anything. A lot of things can surprise you in TVT. Like sometimes people randomly make a Liberator. Sometimes they'll go for Raven auto turret harass, and you just want to make sure you're ready no matter what. Now this is something you want to do in every TVT, but this is admittedly quite hard. Since Marines are quite expendable, you can use them very well to scout the map. And this is also extremely necessary. In TVT, if your opponents ever get a siege position that's too devastating, you could once again be screwed pretty much instantly. Like, I know, I've said it a lot, but TVT is just very, very brutal, right? So you want to make sure you spread your Marines at least so you can cover most of the scouting paths. Here I can see the Ravens. It's actually really good that I saw those, because if I wasn't moving out with any Marines and I saw that scan, I would actually assume my opponent was there already, right? Because if you scan, usually it means you want to go in. So because of those Marines, I saved myself the money for using a scan myself, and that's always nice. Now, since my opponent seems to want to attack, I'm gonna relocate a bunch of my units to the front over here, and I have to position my tank so I can once again defend my stuff. Now at this point, since I am relatively low on units and high in eco, excuse me, I'm gonna relocate all my army to the front, including all the small units that I have everywhere. Oh, he actually sees those a little bit too far. I'm gonna use the interference matrix here. He does not really want to use the interference matrix himself, because I am just going to win the interference matrix battle over here. So this is just a very pleasant scenario. He doesn't even have vision right now. If he did, I would have... I think I'm shot first, right? Yeah, I did shoot first. If he did, I would have used another interference matrix there. And now, since we killed a couple of units, I'm going to be able to chase him. I'm going to start a couple more barracks over here. He's going to drop... Okay, that's really nice, actually. I did lose a Raven for it. Okay, maybe not as nice then. Forcing your opponent... I think it's still actually a net victory. Forcing your opponents to use Raven energy is a big victory. It is not the most logical thing you would consider to be a resource, but Raven energy is so valuable in 2v2. Or 2v2. Man, my brain has been fried by playing all those team games all this time. By playing TVT. Because tanks counter everything pretty much on the... Actually, not even pretty much. Tanks counter everything on the ground. Easily, right? And the only thing you can really do against it is use air units like Liberators and stuff. You're not going to get up to those too fast, so you use Ravens instead. I could actually fight this. My army is a little small. And notice how he has... Okay, that's interesting. He has medevacs already. Normally, players don't go for medevacs that fast. I'm actually gonna add some sensor towers over here, just because of that. Let's see. TVT, by the way, one of the matchups where you scan the most. Oh, I should have added my fourth base already. It's a little bit of a mistake by me. See a bunch of Ravens over there. Okay, so I'm very tempted to fight here. The reason why I'm not going to is because I see he has enough interference matrices for all my tanks. It's good to be confident, but it's easy to overestimate yourself. Like, I can position myself so his Ravens don't get to my tanks, right? If they do get to your tanks, however, you're dead. So you don't really want to put yourself in that position. Now I'm going to add some turrets into the main base. One over here as well. Now this is why I'm a bit annoyed that my fourth base was late, because now I have this oversaturation that I could have fixed earlier. But there's actually a really nice small tip that I can give you. In TVT, the timing of your second factory is actually just when your combat shield finishes, because then you can take over the reactor. I think I explained it in one of the TVZ games that a lot of time Marine tank does actually mean just Marine tank, and TVT is another one of those situations. Now, for the most part, I didn't have to split my army, throughout the mid-game at least. But now I will have to, because he has a medevac, so he could drop me at any point. So what I'm going to do is I'll siege my tanks up front over here, put my air army in this location, and then I'll send my Marines forward so I can kind of stop the Ravens from interference matrixing me. That's the right idea over here. It's probably just a Marine. I probably just use it to check the upgrades. Really important tip as well, by the way, is to check your opponent's upgrades every time you can. So in most matchups, it is not that important. I say carefully because it's important. But in TVT, you absolutely have to check. If your opponent has more upgrades than you in Marine against Marine, you are absolutely toast if you fight. So let's say he's unsieged, right? And I can jump on him. I would still not do that if he's ahead in upgrades. If I'm ahead in upgrades, then you 100% do that, otherwise you don't. Now, normally dropping is a little scary, but my opponent doesn't actually seem to have... I'm gonna take a base in the top right over here, because he seems to be snarking around, which is annoying. Since he doesn't have a lot of Vikings, at least I think he doesn't, I'm gonna try to go for a drop over there. Keep trying to get vision with my Marines and stuff. At this point, I'm gonna add a couple more barracks. It's the best composition you can have is pretty much to go for air, but I haven't really cleaned up his army yet, so that's a little scary. He has worse upgrades than me here, actually, so I can totally fight this. I know it seems a little scary, but as you can see, my Marines are actually destroying his. You guys are probably surprised by that, but yeah, Marines are very, very good. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna use all of my interference matrices pretty much. I am still ahead in upgrades, so this is an acceptable fight to take for now. Probably drop these over here, and this is gonna be a very, very nice cleanup. Now, I'll be honest, if I know it looked like it was good. The upgrades, I'm gonna say it again, I have to keep doubling down on that. I would not have won that fight if it wasn't for the upgrade lead, okay, guys? Really, please try to remember that. Like, it's absolutely massive. The drop in the main, the fight at the front. If you're down in upgrades, you rely on your tanks. If you're up in upgrades, you can go freaking ham, but be careful, okay? Fights in TvT are incredibly hard to take, like they really are. It is rarely as comfortable as that one was. Now, I did have my Ravens in position. Extremely important as well to always have them on a hotkey, by the way. I have them on Q. That's my third army hotkey. So no, actually, I'm giving a lot of extra tips this game, I feel like, but Terran does not use Q and W, meaning that you can actually use those as army hotkeys. For me, my upgrades are in W, and my third army group is Q. And that way I have everything very nice on the left side of my keyboard. Now, I have 85 workers. That is pretty much perfect for a TvT, by the way. That's exactly how much you want. Now, I should have transitioned to air a little earlier. I have all this gas. Normally, this... yeah, wouldn't really seem that nice, but since I'm going to end up making mass Ravens anyway, it's probably going to be okay. Now, I think I can go for a big push. I'll try to hit with 3-3, because I know that my 3-3 is ahead of my opponents. I also know that it's significantly ahead of my opponents. Sometimes you don't know for sure. If you click on someone's units and he has 1-1, his 2-2 could be 1 second away, or I don't know how long the upgrade takes, like 150 seconds or something. So you have to be careful, but I know that his upgrades are, I want to say, at least a minute behind mine. I'm not exactly sure how much it is, but it's definitely at least a minute. I think I kill his Ravens too, by the way, which means that, I mean, this guy is going to die in 20 seconds, okay? I would love to show you guys the late game behind this. In the end, it's actually pretty simple. You just add a bunch of Ravens, so you can always anti-armor missile and disable all the tanks. That's pretty much it. He cannot siege into there. The reason why he's gonna die is because my 3-3 is finished now, and I have enough interference matrices for every single tank. Oh, really well done on him by sniping those Ravens. The sad part is that it's not gonna matter because I have the extra upgrades. And here you can see it once again. Like, it's disgusting. It's actually disgusting. Like, this was not a good fight for me to take normally, but now it is. You can look at my money and my supply, and that's after I wiped out his entire army. So, really, guys, it's quite something. And the only reason... oh, that's actually a mistake by me there. I tried to move back a little earlier. The only reason why I'm not going in super confidently is because tanks still hurt, even if you have extra... Is he... oh, dude, I thought I heard an anti-armor, or sorry, what's it called? A turret, a missile turret, an auto turret, sorry. But it was freaking my turret shooting his liberators. I think a nice way to finish this game would be to go for a drop. First, I'm going to make him think, excuse me once again, that we are going to go over there. And then I'm going to go for, actually, okay, well, if he scans me, then we're not going to go for that, sadly. Because the easiest way for me to do this is just to... keep running around and find the weaknesses. I did just make a couple of extra Ravens. Even though he sniped my Ravens nicely earlier, that did allow me to jump into his army anyway. And now I have my extra Ravens coming in. He is most likely going to have 3-3 for the next fight, so that is something to keep in mind. Let's see, how many Ravens do I have? It's going to be 4. They don't have that much energy, so it's going to be 4 interference matrices. It's going to be more than enough, actually, it looks like. They already have it, surprisingly. Let's see, he does have 3-3 now. The only thing we need to be careful of is just, you know, fighting on siege pretty much. If we fight on siege, we are going to get absolutely deep fried, and that's not what we want. He's going to try to fight over here. This is not going to be pleasant for him. Like I said, tanks really hurt. Tanks actually counter everything on the ground. I'm not kidding. There's no worry in the world at all. Tanks just delete everything on the ground. Floors, other tanks, doesn't matter. And there you go. And this was actually quite pleasant. Because this was an extremely standard TVT. I don't think anyone got particularly ahead from the early game, I believe. I think I might have ended up one worker ahead or something. I lost workers earlier, which is more painful, but then I killed more. But then after that, it was just a very clean and calm game, traded about double the efficiency. And this is roughly how you want to be playing those games. So you kind of want to try get air control, get a lot of tanks. Here, I started making medevacs because my opponent never made Vikings, so I was going to get air control anyway. Think about it this way. The ideal Viking count is a couple more than your opponent. If your opponent has 0 Vikings and you make 20, there's a good chance you're going to die to like 1 million Marines surrounding you because the rest of your army supply is quite small, right? So try to just make a couple more Vikings than the opponent. Besides that, you can make medevacs. If your opponent is not ready for drops, it's going to be absolutely brutal. My first drop went ham, forced him to go back. I traded super efficiently with the upgrades, and this was just a very nice, clean TVT. Now, ideally, I want to show you guys one more Protoss game, so let's do that. All right, the final game is going to be against a very high MMR Protoss player. Now, I actually played against this guy earlier, but I accidentally stopped building my factory for 15 seconds, so it wasn't exactly a usable game, unfortunately. Now, this game I'm going to play slightly different. We already had one TVP before, but that game kind of ended a little fast, unnecessary, and abrupt, so I wanted to try get at least one nice macro game in there, you know. Not necessarily like a super late game or anything, just at least so you guys can see the follow-ups and how you want to move your army and stuff like that. So remember what I said about wanting to do something surprising against Protoss? That doesn't necessarily have to be a one-base build or yeah, Proxy Reaper, double gas, that kind of thing. Doesn't necessarily have to be it, as long as it has some kind of punch to it. So this game, I'm actually going to do a build that's not that popular anymore, but I really like, in particular because of its follow-up, and that's going to be a 3 racks. 3 racks meaning that I'm going to go for a fast expansion, and then I'll add 2 extra barracks instead of the usual factory and starport. And the reason why I like that build is it gives you a powerful army straight from the get-go. So if you play 1-1-1, you know, 1 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport, you kind of have a very fragile army, and you just have to sit back for so long. Like, you get to attack with your Reaper Hellion, but then the other guy gets Blink Stalkers, and you're really just gonna sit there until like 7 minute 30 or something ridiculous. And I don't really like giving that much space to my opponent. And this is another thing that you can factor in when you think about build orders, is that not just the strength of the build immediately itself matters, but also the follow-up. So for example, if you have a build, let's say some kind of weird Marauder Hellion attack, right? People always get very creative. Let's say some kind of weird Marauder Hellion attack. If you play this against Protoss, and you always kill 15 probes, you would think, okay, this build, you know, this is it. This is my best build. I will always kill Protoss players with this. But if you have absolutely no follow-up with this, and you will not be able to defend Blink Stalkers, you do not have anything to defend Oracles, you have to sit back for 3 minutes because your stim is so late, then it also becomes a bad build, even if, you know, it looks so successfully initially. And that is, for me, the strong suit of 3 racks, is that you get your stim and combat shield so fast. All you really need is to add medevacs, and you have the composition that you end up in every game already anyway. And maybe not on this map, because this map has a ramp on the natural, but on some maps you even have kill potential with this. So Protoss players will usually try to take a fast third base, relatively fast. Unless they're going to go for some kind of blink aggression, they will take a pretty... This is a nice donation by him. They will take a pretty fast third base. I think I'm gonna... No, okay. That's good. I thought I was gonna kill it, but I wasn't 100% sure, so I closed my depots anyway. I didn't want him to scout my 3 racks, which is obviously quite important here, because it's a bit of a surprise. But yeah, you can kill your opponent with the 3 racks timing attack. If the map has a ramp in the natural, that is already way less likely. Now, theoretically, he could finish that shade and see my 3 barracks. but that would also be kind of silly because most of the time Terrans just do 1-1-1 and then you lose your adept for it and you just feel dumb, right? So now if you want an extra layer of mind games, by the way, what you can do is you keep... So notice how I'm saturating my mineral lines by saturation, right? I have 16 on minerals and 3 on gas, and the rest is going to the natural. A really good Protoss player would now know that I'm playing 3 racks. And you might be like, there's absolutely no way, right? What a really good Protoss player would do is he would shade through my mineral line, and he would see that there are more SCVs than there should be. So if you play against... Okay, so he shaded here. If you play against a really good Protoss player, what you want to do is you want to just keep 3 extra SCVs in the main base, as if you had another gas. And that way they can't actually tell by scouting your mineral line. Here he decided to finish the shade eventually, which actually quite surprised me. But it is what it is. Now I'm going to add 2 extra gases. One easy tip, if you do any kind of stim timing, by the way, is that you want to arrive at the base when stim finishes. This is important for every timing. If you hit a 2-2 timing, a stim timing, a whatever timing, you want to hit when the timing arrives. You don't want to hit, you know, you don't want to leave your base when the timing arrives. Okay, so he has blink. He's doing exactly what you should be doing. And I'm not going to commit here. The reason why I'm not going to commit is because I don't know how many gateways he has. So he could be going for... Let me get a factory here as well. Engineering Bay and Factory is the follow-up, by the way, to this. Pretty logically, and should come pretty naturally as well. I don't know how many gateways he has, so if I would go in right now, and he's playing 4-gate Blink, he would have enough Stalkers to kill my units just too efficiently, and then we would be in trouble, right? So instead what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make it very awkward for him by just hiding my units on the map. Unless he somehow found this with a random observer, which I really doubt. He would have to be very lucky for that. He's not going to see these. And then if he attacks my base, I'm going to have enough to defend at home because I'm playing 3 racks and I have a counterattack. If he doesn't do anything, then I'm perfectly fine just chilling here for now. I'm going to get my factory and my starport. A good... how would I say this? A good way to... Oh yeah, so he has the prism. He might be going for an attack here. A good way to look at the economy in a transition is that you make stuff until you have 50 SCVs, and then... Oh, he was actually over here. That's funny. And then you start adding on the extra barracks and stuff. Now, good for me that I did indeed have Stim already. I don't know why that Prism is just chilling there. I think he was probably intending to attack me at some point, but then he probably just misrallied it there, to be honest. So now I'm going to add 2 more barracks. And even though my stuff was scouted and it was dealt with perfectly fine... but is he trying to go... It looked like he was going to go... What the hell is he doing with this prism? This is so confusing right now. He's actually just blowing my brain by not controlling the prism properly, pretty much. Sorry, I'll get back to my written promise. There's an observer over here, by the way. It would be nice to kill. Yeah, now I just have my 30C going on, and the situation actually looks completely fine to me. Now, this is where things can get a little bit stylistic. So, most Terran players here would get pretty passive. I think that Protoss... It's not necessarily about the strength of the race, but Protoss becomes a little too easy if the Terran player plays too passive. Like, theoretically, the perfect Ghost Viking game should be, you know, very, very strong. But I just don't think you can really play the perfect game against someone that just, like, they click 10 Zealots in your base and they have Disruptors and Colossus on the other side. And I just don't think you're ever really gonna, you know, win against Protoss APM in that case. Now, I think this guy is very scared, actually. He's playing very scared anyway. Let me take care of this Adept. Now, with these medevacs, you have to be very, very careful. If he has Blink Stalkers, he might catch it. I think most likely he went for Colossus. What I'm waiting for now is my next couple of medevacs. And this is kind of... Okay, so he's gonna attack me over here. And I'm gonna go back. Against Protoss, I always like to attack in multiple fronts at the same time. I never really want to go for just one front, because then, you know, they kind of just end up kiting you with the Colossus and throwing force fields and stuff. But if you attack at 2 fronts, it becomes way, way harder for them. Supply is also incredibly high with the 3 racks, by the way, which is very nice. There's more than enough Stalkers there. That's why you scan, by the way. Do not... Oh, that's a little bit of a mistake there. Not going to get punished for it, luckily enough. There's no Colossus yet, actually, surprisingly. What am I gonna do about this situation? I have enough units at home, don't really have to worry about it too much, that is for sure. Probably just click a couple units on the prism. And now what I want to do is try to decide how I'm going to win this game. Okay, so here's a... Why was the army over there? I think he... I don't know, but what the hell? Did he just randomly had his army there? That is a little bit insane, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, I guess we're just gonna kill his base for free then. Well, not for free. Why was his army up there? I have no idea, but it's gonna net us his base kills, so I guess I can't be too sad about it. Though if I knew that, I guess I would have, you know, done it a little more efficiently. Now, I think even in this game, you can really tell the strength of the 3 ranks, because this game hasn't gone fluently by any means. But my army supply and the danger of my army has always just felt really, really high. Okay, this is nice, because now we can finally get rid of that prism. Prism should die for sure, but at least if I microed my stuff. Let's see, please tell me I microed well enough. I did, I think, and that is going to die. Please? Oh my goodness. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that, my friend. This is exactly what I'm talking about, by the way. This is why you don't want to play the long Ghost Viking game. Like, not to shit on my opponent here, I don't mean it like that at all. But sending zealots to all these bases, it's not really difficult to do, but it's pretty difficult to deal with. You know, and I think for that reason you don't really want to play too passive of a game. You always want to be kind of out on the map. I don't necessarily like going for Ghost too much until I have to, because it kind of costs you a lot of momentum over here. I saw him go up there, and that's a massive mistake. He's going to go for that base once again, and I think that this is going to be the winning push for me. The 3-Rex army that I've been building up all this time is now pretty massive. Now, I do have to be careful over here to not get too overzealous, especially on the left side. I think if I would go back to deal with the Zealots here, I would give him too much of an opportunity. I know my base is dying, but Zealots don't really die to just reinforcements. You need like pretty much a small army to deal with those. So instead of going back, I'm just on a mission to deal even more damage to him. Let me target down that Colossus. And now I can start rallying at home again. Let's see. Make sure I don't actually send these units back home. My supply is still... was that a DT, or did that Stalker just look particularly vicious? Just to have a good amount of army supply here, by the way. 2-2 is about to finish, and I didn't actually remember that I did that, but I saved all of my SCVs. So even though my base looked like it got absolutely cooked, it stayed alive, and that is very pleasant for me. Now, my Vikings have done a decent amount of work, but somehow I still feel disappointed in them. I wish I could explain that, but I can't. Let's see, his upgrades are 2-0, I believe I saw. That means my upgrades are significantly better than his. Here you can tell that either he does not have vision. This is a little bit of psycho analysis here. Either he does not have vision, or he is not a player that plays carefully and he just cares about... Oh, okay, never mind. I thought I saw an observer there. Or he just cares about playing fast. He sent units into my base. Did I just see an observer right there? Yeah, I did. He sent units into my base, even though my army was right there. And it does seem like he has vision, so now I know that he just plays a little reckless. So there are some things that you can do to counter that. Like, for example, you can pretend to move out. That DT? Oh, it was actually DTs. Oh, I should have trusted my gut there. Widowmine's barely not going to kill that, I'm afraid. No, it's not indeed. Okay. Now I have my turrets over here. I'm going to show you guys an easy way to deal with DTs. You should just put... a turret with 1 Widowmine at all of your bases. And then, since most of the time when they send DTs, they're just gonna send like 1 per base. Well, that... Okay, I'm telling you, this guy, this is one of those things where I should have trusted my gut. Like, this guy really, he does not play careful at all. He just sends random stuff into your bases. So I kind of tend to be like, okay, surely he's not going to do it again. My army's right there. But you can tell that he just doesn't really care, you know? He just wants to send stuff in your bases. That is pretty much it. Now, this is one of those fights where you want to stop being careful and just go for it, because the Colossus are in trouble. Those Colossus are going to fall. And if it's... make sure to pull your Marines back, by the way. If you're chasing Colossus, you want to pull them back. If you're able to stay in the defensive arc, then... you don't have to pull the Marines back, but if you're going to chase into a Colossus, 100% pull those Marines back, because they will get absolutely one-tapped, and they're going to leave you pretty sad. There we go, I'm going to have a situation over here. He's going to click another couple Zealots in my base, as I expected. Guess I'm just going to get in here. He could attack me from behind, so I'm going to send 1 Marine over there. Let's see, he's not... You could have recalled too, by the way. Don't forget about that possibility. Definitely could have been the case for now. Is he there? No. Okay, so it does look like he recalled. Gonna send one Marine over there. It's a pretty decent amount of Zealots over there, surprisingly. Let me make sure to deal with that first, and then I'll go on about pushing further. His army is pretty big. So I kind of want to be careful with this. I think the best course of action here is actually to go for a drop. I do think he recalled, which means that he's not going to have a recall available to get into the main base, and then I'm going to have all these liberators ready for him to actually get into that base. This looks like a just... You see, he actually doesn't care. There's not even SCVs here, and he just sent 1 million Zealots into my base. It's so funny to see. Kind of plays a little like my Protoss, to be honest. Just absolute psycho mode, no forks given, you know. So here what I'm going to do is just put my SCVs on A move, and then I'll hold position them so they derp out all of the Zealots, which is really nice. Here I can surround those Zealots. It's going to be painful. In the meantime, he has lost all of his production back at home, which is very nice. Now, he did have a really big army still, so I want to be careful for that. I can go down this ramp, but I just have to be extremely careful. I know he has Disruptors as well. Disruptors probably the scariest part out of all of this. Now, I really have to say, guys, I think he did me a pretty big favor, honestly, by sending so many Zealots for the counterattack. They were not necessarily that efficient, and they would have been way scarier with his army. Here I'm trying to deal with pretty much just trying to get free damage done. He might even end up shooting a Disruptor shot for this. Maybe I can... He's being very brave with those Colossus, guys. Colossus are not that great against Marauders, exactly. Now, what I'm scared of here is that I feel like there's no way that this is his entire army. If this was his army, I would have A-moved him already, but I'm just... Exactly, I was not buying it. That is a... Not the biggest army ever, to be honest. See, I can probably go for it, try to get at least a couple of those Zealots. I know he has one Disruptor shot. Maybe shoot his own Zealot. There we go, kills one Zealot. He's not paying attention to the sentries. He did pay attention in the end, and now I'm gonna go for the forward attack over here. Try to lift my third base, or my main base to the third. That's going to be a good idea. Try to siege those over here. Now, my opponent definitely has a fourth base. That's the only reason that I'm really in a rush over here. See, force the Disruptor shot out. It's kind of the first step you want to do. You do want to be careful over here. I don't think he wants to attack into this. The biggest problem is that I lost most of the Marauders, which means that my army here is not actually that small. I do want to take a trade, however, that's why I'm going for this. I'm kind of waiting for the Disruptor shot. It's not actually happening so far. Maybe I'll just target both of them down. Can't actually get both of them, sadly. And now we're going to stim into this base, which is going to be a very big moment. It's going to go for the recall, actually. That means that this is going to be the deciding moment, pretty much. He's going to lose a lot of his expensive units really instantly, which is nice. No GG is called. And there we go. All right. Well, yeah, TVP can get a little crazy for sure. This is a style that is not very common at the pro level that I'm playing, but it's the style I like to play the most. I think you could kind of see it in this game as well. And if you have played TVP on the ladder, you've experienced it, I'm 100% sure. They will just keep right-clicking Zealots in your main base. And if you're trying to play with this high-tech army that you can't stim forward fast, you're going to have to keep going back. Protoss players just take all the... I mean, look at this, right? He is denying my third base and he's taking a fifth base at the same time. If I'm playing Ghost Viking, I have to go back because I can't move forward and it just becomes very, very hard. So even though if you're looking at literally the best Terran player in the world, this might not be the best style, but... for most pros, including for me, I got the 6.5k, not even making Vikings, literally just making Marine Marauder Medivacs and playing very aggressive. And I think that way you keep the Protoss a little bit in skill line. I feel like a lot of Protoss players have gotten too comfortable. They just build up their big army with Colossus and Disruptors while right-clicking Zealots. And Terrans don't have the means to be aggressive because they're making these expensive units. It gets very hard. But that's going to be it for today. I hope I covered most of what you guys were curious about. We got every matchup in there. I think 2 TVPs, 2 TVZs, and 1 TVT. And yeah, just let me know what you thought and what you want to see more. Feel free to ask questions. And that's going to be it for today. I'm pretty tired, especially doing this right after being sick. But I still had a good time. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all for the next one. Adios.